WADR.org. WADR, promoting dialogue.
It's 6 p.m. in Dakar and Accra. Good evening and welcome to Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and worldwide at WADR.org. Here are the top stories. Rescue operations continue in Accra as death toll hits 12 and 38,000 people affected by Monday's floods.
We'll not only break the houses, we have to move the rubble out of the way because there's no use breaking a house and leaving the rubble in the waterway. It's just the same as leaving the house.
Anti-migrant protests in South Africa largely passed peacefully except for isolated incidents.
What we experienced today in South Africa was that majority of the stores or shops that are owned by foreign nationals were closed.
Boko Haram fighters attack and abduct several students in northeast Nigeria, and AES Confederation meets to operationalize the bloc's parliamentary body. Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
On the news, this is Abdullahi Hassan.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast. This edition of Newslink kicks off in Ghana, where authorities are continuing rescue and recovery operations after devastating floods swept through parts of the Greater Accra region following torrential rainfall. The latest official figures show that at least 12 people have lost their lives, while more than 470 people have been rescued from floodwaters by emergency responders. Nadiri Tete reports.
More than 24 hours since the devastating floods that wreaked havoc in parts of Accra, rescue teams say operations are still ongoing, warning that the death toll could rise in the coming days. So far, 12 people have been confirmed dead due to the floods that submerged major roads, homes and businesses across Accra and nearby Tema. Government officials say the floods have affected more than 38,000 people, with 7 others still reported missing. Hundreds of families displaced are now seeking shelter at schools and worship centers on high ground. Economic activities, including transportation, have been disrupted. Authorities have urged residents in flood-prone communities to remain vigilant as more rainfall is forecast in parts of southern Ghana. Speaking during an assessment tour, President John Dramani Mahama announced emergency measures to prevent such disasters and directed financial compensation for affected persons. Monday's disaster has once again renewed calls for improved drainage systems, stricter urban planning, and better flood preparedness in Accra, where seasonal flooding remains a recurring challenge. For WADR, Nadiri Tete, Accra.
Meanwhile, authorities in Côte d'Ivoire are assessing the damage after torrential rains that triggered deadly floods and landslides in the country's economic capital, Abidjan. The latest provisional official toll shows at least 20 people have been killed and 5 others injured following days of heavy rainfall. Rescue teams are continuing to search affected areas amid fears the death toll could rise. Officials say 9 of the victims were members of the same household in the Mosikro neighborhood, located between the communes of Yopougon and Achukube, where a building collapsed after the downpour. Flood waters have inundated several parts of Abidjan, leaving major roads impassable and disrupting traffic and daily activities. The communes of Kokodi, Yopougon, Abobo, Cheville, Makori, and Bingaville are among the most affected. Let's break for an update in South Africa, where anti-migrant protests took place today across major cities. While demonstrations passed peacefully, sources say there was isolated violence and arrests. June 30, for many businesses, commercial activities and administrative duties were largely suspended in South Africa. Heavy security deployment remains in several hotspots amid growing fears the protests could descend into violence and spark fresh xenophobic attacks. WADR minutes ago spoke with Maswili Relebona, a journalist and researcher with the South African Broadcasting Corporation.
Thank you once again. What we experienced today in South Africa was that majority of the stores or shops or businesses that are owned by foreign nationals were closed, especially in Johannesburg, where I'm stationed, and also in other cities where we saw on SABC News and other platforms where we saw that there were demonstrations all throughout the country, especially in big cities. We're talking about Cape Town, Durban, we're talking Pretoria, and Bloemfontein, and also some isolated protests in small cities like your Mafikeng and others. But what I saw with my naked eyes as I was driving around Joburg this morning, going to Auckland Park, where the SABC is based, I saw that majority, or if not all, let's say all the shops in an area called Mayfair, where others also refer to it as Mogadishu, because there's a lot of Somalians that are based there, running spaza shops and other kind of businesses. You also have some Pakistanis in that area, but majority of the people in that area, even by your sighting as you're driving around, you will realize that are not South Africans, and many of them, they were nowhere to be seen today. There's an area called Crown Mines where you have your wholesale stores, you have your warehouses there, and then not far from it there's a place called China City where Chinese businesses are selling all sorts of products there, and majority of the people who are employed there are said to be foreign nationals, African foreign nationals in South Africa. They were the stores, the gates of that mall, the China City Mall, were closed today. Whereas in a normal day, those businesses will go on and on until late around 8 p.m.
Ms. Willie Ralibona, a journalist and researcher with the South African Broadcasting Corporation.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Many thanks for staying with us. As a reminder, we stream live at wadr.org and on YouTube and Facebook at WADR. Crossing over to Nigeria, armed men in Borno State, northeast of the country, have attacked a school and abducted several students. The latest attack on the secondary school in Askira Uba local government area of Borno is renewing questions about the role of state governments in protecting lives and securing vulnerable communities. The attack is the latest in a series of assaults on schools in northern Nigeria, despite government efforts to strengthen security around learning institutions through the Safe Schools initiative. From Abuja, Ichinisa Setu reports.
Questions are mounting over the effectiveness of security measures at the state level following the attack on Government Day Secondary School in Lassa, Askira Uba local government area of Borno State. The attack, carried out by suspected Boko Haram insurgents during a National Examinations Council NECO examination, left a teacher dead and several students abducted. Public Relations Officer of the Borno State Police Command, Nahum Dasu, confirmed the incident.
As of now, we don't have the specific number if there are any students still in captivity. But what is certain is 10 have been rescued so far.
While security agencies continue efforts to rescue the remaining victims, the incident has renewed scrutiny of how state governments utilize security funds allocated to address local security challenges. Public Affairs Analyst Adeni Ifetayo questions what state governments are using their security votes for if schools and communities remain vulnerable.
Our government needs to be more proactive than reactionary. Most of the governors, they have security votes. What will it take you to build some more police posts or security posts, deploy CCTV camera, drone, where you monitor? These are the times they need to be transparent.
Security analyst Olumayowa Olani says there are underlying factors that have to be addressed to curb insecurity in Nigeria.
Critical reason for the security challenge or challenges that we have is a governance issue, something that is really tied to socioeconomic realities. You cannot use the police to solve it. But nonetheless, hopefully, the state police will contribute to curbing some of these challenges.
The latest attack comes amid renewed calls for stronger collaboration between federal and state authorities to safeguard schools and prevent further attacks on learning institutions. For WADR, Yechenu Sasitu in Abuja.
More on security matters. The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has warned that global instability, economic hardship, and the misuse of emerging technologies are creating fertile ground for terrorism globally. He was speaking at the opening week of the Counterterrorism Summit, the 2026, which outlined steps to shift global efforts.
First, prevention. We must address the conditions and grievances that allow terrorism to take root. Too many people face poverty, discrimination, disenfranchisement, and violation of their rights. These wrongs do not justify terrorism. Nothing can. But they can create vulnerabilities that terrorist groups are quick to exploit. Second, cooperation. Terrorism is a transnational threat and no nation can address it alone. By deepening collaboration between states, we can close critical gaps, enhance capacity building, and leverage one another's expertise. But we can go further by working with partners who know their communities and their needs. Third, technology. Terrorists have grown adept at exploiting emerging technologies, including artificial intelligence, digital platforms, and unmanned weapons. These tools have supercharged their ability to recruit, finance, and plan attacks. But technology also offers powerful tools to detect threats early, stop the flow of illicit assets, and understand pathways to terrorist radicalization.
The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres speaking there. Now, crossing to the Sahel, the alliance of the Sahel state AES has moved a step closer to operationalizing its confederal parliament, a body expected to represent citizens of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. This follows a meeting in Ouagadougou between AES legislative leaders and Burkina Faso's transitional president, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, which cleared the way for the appointment of lawmakers to the new institution. But beyond the symbolism, questions remain over what the new parliament will actually be able to do. To explore its possible powers and limitations, here is Sankule Janko with an analysis.
In several blocks, including ECOWAS, regional parliaments often play more of an advisory role, with limited ability to directly shape laws or to enforce decisions. In most cases, the real power remains with national leaders. The AES Parliament could face a similar situation unless member states gradually decided to transfer more authority to it over time. Another important issue is legacy and representation. The first members of this parliament are expected to be appointed by the authorities in the three countries, rather than elected directly by citizens across the Confederation. Supporters argue that this approach will allow the institutions to become operational quickly, but critics say it could raise questions about accountability, especially if appointments become a permanent feature. There is also a practical challenge that cannot be ignored: sustainability. A functioning parliament requires funding, administrative capacity, and regular sessions. Yet, the three countries are currently dealing with serious security pressures and competing national priorities, which could affect how far this institution is supported in the long term. Beyond these immediate concerns, the future of the AES Parliament is closely tied to the broader direction of the alliance itself. Since their exit from ECOWAS, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger have been working to build joint structures in security. defense and economic cooperation. The parliament is meant to be the political pillar within that evolving framework. But ultimately, its success will be measured by its creation alone. The real test will be whether it can influence policies, provide oversight, and reflect the concerns of citizens across the three countries in a meaningful way. For now, the AES Parliament represents ambition and political direction, but its true weight in the region will only become clear once it begins to operate.
Sankule Janko with that analysis. You are listening to Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM, online at wadr.org and on YouTube and Facebook at WADR. Here's a reminder of our top stories. Rescue operations continue in Accra as death toll hit 12 and over 38,000 people affected by Monday's flood. Anti-migrant protests in South Africa largely passed peacefully except for isolated incidents. Boko Haram fighters attack and abduct several students in northeast Nigeria, and the AES Confederation meets to operationalize the bloc's parliamentary body. Ahead in the news, we have the guest interview and sports news. Please stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
Well, we still stay in the Sahel, precisely in Mali, where life is slowly getting back to normal in the northern city of Timbuktu after several days of major disruptions. Last week, residents were left without electricity and running water, making daily life extremely difficult. While power is gradually being restored, the city is now facing another challenge, a shortage of fuel that is affecting transport and other essential services. Our correspondent, Bamako Aliucham, has been following the story. His report is voiced by Usman Umar.
Of those dismissed, 4,900
in several blocks, including ECOWAS, regional parliaments often play more of an advisory role with.
We'll bring you details of that report in our subsequent bulletin. Now, moving on, changing weather patterns and food security were the core of a newly launched environmental initiative in Dakar, Senegal. Known as the Climate Resilience Agriculture, Food Systems and Transformation Craft, the scheme is supported by the government of Japan and the World Food Programme as the implementation partner. The first of its kind, the $2 million project, specifically targets the Matam region of Senegal, where climate-induced drought and environmental factors are affecting crop yield. Christopher Ticho reports.
The WFP Japan partnership is supporting smallholder farmers in the Matam region in eastern Senegal, where farmers are hit by the adverse effects of climate change, such as drought and heat waves. The CRAFT project seeks to build farmers' resilience and adaptability through climate-smart farming practices, better post-harvest management, and stronger local food systems, while creating employment opportunities. Lucas Pierre is WFP's country director.
So the idea is to work with community of women and to work in particular in horticulture, gardening, to give opportunities to women to diversify their production, also to have access to market and to use innovative technology to respond to these challenges. We have identified 7 sites in the surrounding of Matam, and we will support 1,200 families.
Japan, a long-standing partner of the World Food Programme and supporting food security across West Africa, says the latest cooperation seeks to strengthen agricultural value chain. Hata Yoshaki is charged the affairs at the Embassy of Japan in Dakar.
This time, which is unique, is we're bringing Japanese companies. Each they have a specialized knowledges, so to retain more water or maybe irrigation system, but we do that by the solar system, and the PAM will be doing all these coordination together. And this is all about this craft project.
Japan says the success of the pilot phase in Senegal could open the door for the craft initiative to expand across West Africa, particularly to countries in the Sahel facing growing food insecurity. The project is being launched at a critical time as millions across the region continue to grapple with hunger driven by a combination of conflicts, climate change, weak agricultural systems, and governance challenges.
Christopher Aticho reporting there away from Senegal. Guinean authorities have dismissed more than 5,000 civil servants in what the government described as a major effort to clean up the country's public service payroll. A series of decrees signed by the Minister of Modernization of Administration and Public Service, Faya Francois Borono, removed 5,125 state employees from the civil service. Imoradet completes the story.
Of those dismissed, 4,906 were sanctioned for abandoning their posts, while 219 had remained on leave beyond the maximum legal period of 5 years. The affected workers came from several key government institutions, including the presidency and the ministries responsible for foreign affairs, education, health, justice, security, environment, and tourism. According to the ministry, the employees had first been placed on a 3-month precautionary suspension and were allowed to return to work. Their failure to do so resulted in their permanent dismissal. Despite losing their jobs, the government says the dismissed workers will retain their pension rights in line with existing legislation. The mass dismissal forms part of a broader government drive to streamline the public administration, eliminate irregularities in the state payroll, and modernize Guinea's civil service under laws adopted in 2018 and 2019.
Imoradet with that report.
Politics,
analyses on major news,
social matters, and all. This is The Guest.
Our guest segment turns to Senegal, where a fresh political standoff is unfolding over proposed constitutional reforms. The National Assembly's ruling past-left majority has approved a draft bill seeking sweeping changes, including reducing presidential powers and creating a constitutional court. But the government wants the reforms put to a national referendum, setting the stage for a clash between the executive and the legislature. With Senegal facing economic challenges, is a referendum necessary, and what could it cost? To unpack these issues, we have Senegalese political analyst Mamadou Cho.
Yes, when you look at the political situation of the country to organize even one election, because a single election is costing us 15 billion CFA, which is really money. So, but for the president, organizing a referendum is part of this political battle we were mentioning right in the beginning. Because what it does mean, it is risky for him. But if he, in the case he organized the referendum and win it, it is a signal that the majority of PASTEF maybe is going to his side. And it will be a very important point for him heading to 2029 for the presidential election. He want to take the risk, or he will take the risk or not, because it is risky. If he loses this referendum, it means that even his mandate, his term as president of Senegal, will be in jeopardy, because this will show that he has no majority, and then PASTEF is holding the majority both at the different level of power.
A referendum can only be successful if people really understand what is at stake. And looking at the particular context we're in right now, do Senegalese understand what is at stake? Do they understand what is before them and how imperative or important their vote will mean?
Yes, the last referendum we had here in Senegal was in 2016. And the issue you're raising was on the top of the discussion on that year, when President Macky Sall was trying to get a new, very many change in the constitution. So many Senegalese didn't understand what all these changes were about. So it's up to Ousmane Sonko and Bassirou Diomaye Faye, who are in a political fight, to explain before the electoral campaign, during the electoral campaign, which is very short, and explain this and try to get Senegalese to understand what is at stake with this change in the constitution.
Amadou Cho, Senegalese political analyst. All right, in the sporting world, once again, I have Sankule Janko joining us for some very interesting, exciting updates. Sankule.
Yes, Abdullah, thank you. You're right. We're here with some updating, very, very interesting. Because at the moment, as you know, Côte d'Ivoire is actually playing at this point in time, but it's not looking really, really, really good for the West African side. Because I'm sorry to say, but at this point in time, second half just kicked off about moments ago. At the moment, they're behind against Norway. Erling Haaland, as you know, of course, he scored against Senegal as well. He scored for the Norwegian side, and at the moment, Côte d'Ivoire are trailing, and they need to buckle up because they need to equalize if they want a place in the round of 16 of the FIFA World Cup.
And so you have more fixtures later tonight?
Yes, but before then, Abdullah, as you already know, Brazil came from behind to beat Japan 2-1, in a dramatic round to secure a place in the round of 16. Also, before that, Morocco, remember, they made Africa proud.
Amazing.
Because they certainly did. Morocco, they reached the round of 16 after beating Netherlands in a penalty shootout following a 1-1 draw. Well, Yasin Borno, as always, was the hero for the Atlas Lions because he made a save. And now, guess what? Morocco will be taking on one of the host countries, and that is Mexico. It will interest you to know that Morocco is almost every African is, throwing their support behind Morocco because it's one particular team that people feel that Africa has a genuine chance to get to that stage that we've been. Remember in 2022, Morocco secured a qualification for the semi-finals, and people are hoping
that you'll go past that stage.
People are hoping, yes, they will pass that stage.
But Sankule, what is the strength of the Moroccan team? Is it the finishing, the mid or defense layout?
I will tell you what, the greatest strength for the Moroccan team is their mentality.
Really?
Yes. Okay. Their mentality. Morocco is one thing, for example, against, yesterday, their games against Netherlands, they were trailed by a 0-0 until few minutes after 90. It was in the additional time. Many African teams would have already given up. They've already given up to think, okay, it's over for us. But they didn't. They pushed and pushed. And in the 9 minutes of the additional time, they equalized and they went to the penalty shootout. And then, they eventually won the penalty shootout. That, for me, is their mentality. Yes, they have good players in the middle, at the back, at the front as well, and good goalkeeper. But the mentality is their number one strength for the Moroccan team.
So it's more like staying calm no matter the pressure.
Staying calm and then have the feeling that there is no sort of that inferior complex for the Moroccan team. They believe that they are a very good team and they can compete at any stage against any team.
Yes. Well, most are run out of time, Sankule. What should our listeners know? Fixtures coming up tonight.
Of course, some fixtures coming up. Of course, the Côte d'Ivoire game has already begun, which is already on the way. Like second half, just a kickoff. But later on tonight in the evening, France are one of the favorites. You didn't ask me this question. Are they really? In fact, they are the hot favorites, and they will take on Sweden at 9 p.m. later tonight. That is after the Côte d'Ivoire game, which is currently again ongoing. And like I said, Côte d'Ivoire are trailing at this point in time. Hopefully, before the game ends, we'll have some positive result for Africa.
Indeed. Many thanks, Sankule Janko. And with that, we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and special thanks to Maudo Juf and Shakinjai for the technical support. Do interact with us via social media platforms, X, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at WADR, and stream live at wadr.org. I'm Abdullah Hassan. Good evening.
We thank you for listening to Newslink in Nigeria on Love FM Abuja and Darling FM Owerri. In the Gambia on Hot FM Banjul, Hilltop FM and Veritas Radio in Serekunda. Thank you for listening on Alternative Youth Radio Lofa County, Liberia, Radio Kegaman in Nimba County, and DCN Radio Riverses County. A big thank you to Radio Baft FM in Sierra Leone for listening, and in Ghana we thank Radio Pad in Damango and Royals FM in Wenchi. Thank you all for listening to Newslink.